would like to extend our warm welcome to Professor Dr. Bhuban Chandra Barua, Dean RSLA, Dr. Hiren Chandra Nath, Head of the Department, Royal School of Law and Administration, and all the distinguished panelists, faculty members of all the respective schools of Royal Global University, and students. Moving forward, now I would like to introduce the first panelist, Debojit Das Sir, Advocate, Guwahati High Court. Sir is a practicing advocate of the Guwahati High Court and also a legal academician with the special interest in environment law and climate change. Advocate Debojit Das had worked with various law institutes. He had also been an adjunct faculty at National Law University and Judicial Academy, Assam. Sir had also filed a number of public interest litigations for the public good pertaining to the area on illegal coal mining in tropical rainforest of Assam at Dihing Patkai, oil drilling in Dibru-Saikhwa, and Deepor Beel conservation. Now, I would like to request Professor Dr. Hiren Chandra Barua Sir to felicitate Sir. Ma'am has a master's degree in constitutional law. Having started her journey as an advocate in 1997, Ma'am has actively participated in the filing various writ petitions in the Guwahati High Court, besides appearing before the Central Administrative Tribunal as well as Family Court at Guwahati. Ma'am has served as a standing counsel for various organizations such as Indian Council for Agricultural Research, Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan, Navodaya Vidyalaya Samiti, besides being on the panel of advocates of Guwahati High Court. She is also actively involved with disability rights regime and has rendered pro bono legal services to Shishu Sarothi, a non-profit organization working in the disability sector. She has served as a member of Anti-Sexual Harassment Committee of several organizations, including Guwahati High Court. Ma'am has hosted several conferences and meetings over the years, including the former President of India, late Pranab Mukherjee, and the Vice President of India, Shri M. Venkaiah Naidu. She believes in investing herself to the best of her abilities in any endeavor she undertakes. Now, I would like to request Professor Dr. Bhuban Chandra Barua Sir to felicitate Ma'am.
Now, I would like to introduce the third panelist, Mrinmoy Khataniar Sir, Advocate, Guwahati High Court. Sir has completed BSc Major in Botany from B. Borua College, Guwahati University, and LLB from ILS Law College, Pune University in 1996 and joined Guwahati High Court in 1997. He has been the Standing Counsel of Education Department, Assam from 2006 to 2011. He was the Standing Counsel for erstwhile BTC from 2012 to 2016 and presently practicing at High Court and other courts in Assam. He is a petitioner of two public interest litigation against illegal coal mining by Coal India Limited in Dihing Patkai forest of Dibrugarh and Tinsukia district by challenging the environment clearance granted by central government. Sir has filed public interest litigation against Oil India Limited against environment clearance granted for 7 petroleum drilling well through extended reach drilling in the eco-sensitive area of Dibru-Saikhwa National Park. Sir has also been represented as an advocate for protection of Deepor Beel Wetland and Wildlife Sanctuary and implementation of Wetland Management Rules 2017 and declaration of its eco-sensitive zone, which is paramount in protection of the wetland, which has been consistently ignored by government in spite of being a Ramsar site under international declaration. Now I would like to request Ma'am Hiya Das to felicitate Sir. Sir Pramod Kolita Sir, Advocate, Guwahati High Court. Sir Pramod Kolita is a social and environmental activist hailing from Deepor Beel area, alongside other like-minded people from the area, has been ardently advocating for the preservation of Assam's sole Ramsar site, Deepor Beel, since 2014. In 2021, they united under the banner of Deepor Beel Suraksha Manch, and Sir has assumed the role of its inaugural secretary. This collective has been resolutely vocal for the imperative need to safeguard Deepor Beel and its biodiversity. Their initiatives have extended to the legal realm as they have taken various conservation on issues to the court. Now I would like to request Urmila Varali ma'am to felicitate Sir. Porwa sir to deliver the welcome address.
Good afternoon to all. My esteemed colleagues, beloved students, we are very fortunate and feel proud that today 3 jewels of Guwahati High Court is with us. My long-term friend, Advocate Devojit Das, then Rakhi Saraothia Chaudhary, then Minmoy Khatoniar, then Pramod Kalita may not be professionally an advocate, but is an advocate of the society, advocate of the environment. What he is doing is really adorable. My dear friends, the topic of this panel discussion, the policies posing challenges to wetland conservation in Assam in the light of the Deepor Beel protection. Normally we know that constitution is above all, then the legislations are derived from the constitutions, then on the basis of the legislations, the policies are made by the government. At this time, the policy of the government, what we have observed, what it has been observed by the Guwahati High Court, something wrong there. You know, this Ramsar, this Deepor Beel is a Ramsar site. My dear students, Ramsar sites. Actually, this international convention was held in 2nd of February, if I am not wrong, 1971. And from 1972, this 1977, the 2nd February is observed, has been observed as International Wetland Conservation. So, Wetland Day. So, now Deepor Beel is in crisis. You know, the migratory stocks, many migratory stocks, flora, it is famous for its flora and fauna. And this has been, it is pertinent to mention that the Ramsar site, the central theme of this Ramsar site is wide use of wetland. It's very important. Wide use of wetland. So recently, you know that some serious policy regarding the denotification of the government, it is against the Ramsar site, it is against the wetland destruction, it is anti-conservation. And High Court recently, on an interlocutory application, the Guwahati High Court directs the state government to bring instruction on the denotification of the Deepor Beel wildlife sanctuary. It is a violation of the Supreme Court judges. So I do not take much time from you. I extend my heartiest welcome to all the panelists, esteemed panelists, and I hope that our students definitely will be benefited with their panel discussion. Thank you very much.
We take the privilege to hand over the session to Rakhi Saraothia Chaudhary, Madam.
Post a sumptuous lunch, I'm sure you all must be feeling sleepy. This is the very wrong time to have a conversation on the environment. We'll try to keep you entertained. I'm sure some of you are already half asleep, but with me are some very renowned personalities who have been working in the sector of environmental laws on a very regular basis. And today's conversation is about trying to figure out what is the next steps that we should take to ensure that your generation and the next can perhaps survive. Although we are having a discussion about a specific area today, which is a very important area insofar as the city of Guwahati is concerned, the impact could be very, very, far-fetched, let's say. So to initiate the discussion, I would just like to start off with a little bit of information to all of you about what exactly wetlands are, and thereafter I'll go to Debajidda, who is the person who will be talking to you about the policy changes, and Pramodji, who takes care of who's working at the ground level. Had he not been doing what he's doing, agar ye nahi karte, to there's no point. We are only advocates of what he actually practices. So, and then Mrinmoy, my friend, who has been a crusader, I should say, in fighting in filing PILs in his own name, and making sure that, the courts are aware of what all the problems that we are all facing. I had a small, yes, okay. So quickly, just to let you all know what exactly So what exactly are wetlands? Since the entire conversation is based on that, maybe quickly a quick look on what exactly we are looking at. They are primarily areas which are, based on in and around water bodies, okay, controlling the environment of that entire area. They occur where the water table is at or near the surface of the land, or where the land is covered by shallow water or for at least 6 months of the year. Now, Deepor Beel, which we are talking about specifically, is mostly covered by water throughout the year, okay? And I do not take credit for this presentation. I have just brought in slides from elsewhere which I thought were relevant for today's discussion. So it's not my own presentation per se. What are the most important types of wetlands? Now this is very important in the context that India is, you all know, as a country, is very diverse insofar as its environment is concerned, insofar as its tribes are concerned, its food habits are concerned. Every 80 kilometers, the language, the system, the ecosystem, everything changes in every 80 kilometers in India. What are the 5 different types of major wetlands? And we have several in India. Number 1 is marine, which are naturally coastal based, okay? Estuarine, which includes deltas and tidal marshes, and mangrove swamps. You know that we have several mangrove areas in Kerala as well as in Bengal. Lacustrine, which are wetlands associated with lakes, the Orissa, Chilka lakes and all that. That's called a lacustrine wetland. Riverine is wetlands which are along rivers and streams. And then palestrine is what we are looking at today. So the Deepor Beel area is actually a palestrine or a palestrine, however you want to pronounce it, palestrine wetland, which is basically marshes, swamps and bogs, okay? And apart from that, there are some human-made wetlands which we are not going to touch upon today. The next slide, please. Thank you. The unfortunate part is that those people who are actually beneficiaries of wetlands normally consider it like this, a useless, disease-ridden place, okay? And is that actually what it is, or is it not? Or why is it important to have these wetlands? Do they have any value actually? Is something which Pramodji will tell you about, and he will tell you in detail because he has been a crusader for the Deepor Beel for several decades now. Next slide, please. Deepor Beel wetlands, Assam. You all know where the Deepor Beel is. If you haven't, please drive towards the airport. On the left, you will find a huge water body which is called the Deepor Beel, and it is a palestrine wetland, a significant wetland in the Brahmaputra river drainage. Its area was about 40 square kilometer earlier. It used to be 40 square kilometers. It is no longer that. It has now been landfilled and encroached by several people. So it is no longer 40. This is at a long time back. This data is of a long time back. And this slide also tells you about the Ramsar sites in India. Ramsar, as sir has just spoken about, it is the International Convention on Wetlands, and some sites are declared as Ramsar sites as per that convention. Next slide, please. We can skip this. why is Deepor Beel important for us? Bird paradise, I'm sure my learned friend here will tell you the kinds of migratory birds which come here, and they come and they make their home here for several decades. So, can we have the next slide? Next slide, please. Fish diversity. Several species of fish are available in this, in this entire area, and it is home to a very, what should I say? A very diverse flora and fauna. Next slide, please. Yes. Then is what exactly is the problem? What is happening in Deepor Beel? What is the problem? It is illegal construction and settlements in and around the entire area, and municipal garbage dumping. So it was being used as a garbage dump, all right? It is mainly being used as a garbage dump, and the habitat fragmentation, the spread of invasive, species are being invaded. So we are having a huge plethora of problems now, which are coming to the fore, and it's very, very difficult to ensure that these species or these different kinds of, the breeds which are there are to be conserved, and how they are to be conserved. Okay, last slide, I think. This is another problem which is happening. It is illegal land settlements, constructions. These are all photographs taken from that Deepor Beel area. If you go towards the other side, one road is the airport road, and the other road, which has been newly developed about 7-10 years back, is the road which goes from Boshisto area and towards the back, and also takes you to the airport. That road is filled with construction now. It is absolutely, the land encroachments are happening in a very big manner from that side, all right? And you can skip this, it's okay. This is one other very important problem, because this used to be the elephant corridor from the Rani Darbhanga forest and all that, reserve forest. The elephants regularly used to visit this area, and so this human-animal conflict, which is leading to a lot of loss of lives. So that is another problem which I think we should be able to address in this meeting. I know that it is a little difficult to attend seminars and listen to lectures. We were also there where you are at one point of time, so I can understand how difficult and how painful it is to come at 4 o'clock in the evening and listen to a lecture. But sometimes my take on this is that even if I am able to educate one person here, I think it will be a fruitful day for me. If I can give a feedback to one person who will actually take it forward and perhaps fight for the cause. I'll rest this thing over here, my presentation. I'm going to ask Debajit to tell you about the policies and about what exactly are the laws in this regard. And thereafter, we'll have a conversation with Pramodji and Mrinmoy. Okay? Thank you so much. I'm handing over the mic to Debajit Das now.
Management for giving me an opportunity to give. First of all, I'll thank the organizers for giving us an opportunity to discuss a very important topic. And especially I told Professor Barua that any discussion on environment, the younger generation, especially the post-millennials, the Zers, they should be involved, because you will be now facing the worst kind of climate change. We somehow, Mr. Barua and Nath, and my friends out there, we have completed some years, but you'll be facing because the environment now is basically in the ICU. And one of the most neglected area in the entire ecosystem is the wetlands. And the wetlands, it's one of the most ignored ecosystem throughout the world. And I did not give you the benefits of a wetland, because when India is a signatory to the Paris conference, we made a commitment. In fact, our Prime Minister is also off and on, he always talks about the water crisis, which is going to engulf us after some years. And if we don't protect our environment, our wetlands, if we allow our wetlands to die, will we survive? That's the question. And taking this cue, we had the opportunity of going through a case which was in just give you a brief background, because my friend Minmoy Khatania will say in detail. Deepor Beel came to our mind when Deepor Beel case was being filed by Rohit Chaudhary in the National Green Tribunal in Calcutta. That was basically against the illegal construction, dumping site. After dragging for 6 years, the judgment was delivered, I think in 19, where certain directions were given to the Assam government, and a committee headed by the Chief Secretary was also constituted to look into the matter. The problem in our country is that we might have a lot of plethora of laws, but insofar as not only the implementation, the policy paralysis is a very big issue. And as a result, today your younger generation should know that basically we are now forced to be a pessimist, because virtually in the administrative sector, the policies and programs of the laws, they are not at all implemented, and this wetland is an area which it's a classic case. There is basically dilution of all the laws, especially wetland laws, because wetland conservation came into our national stream policy only in the year 2010. In the 80s, I'm forgetting about 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Half of the wetlands have gone. In the 90s and the 2006, the National Policy on Environment gave importance to wetlands. And it was the bounden duty of the central government and the state government to find out policies, but nothing happened. 2006 went to 2016, a big zero. And in 2010, for the first time, a standalone rules in the form of the wetland rules of 2010 was brought in. And I won't go into details. You are students of law, you'll know better. The main purpose was to have two regulatory authorities, one at the central level and the other at the state level. And they will coordinate. But this coordination created the problem because the states in India want to retain power. And they want to retain power on two sectors. This is the basis why the wetlands are being destroyed now. The central government says that we will have an overall control because under the National Environment Protection Act of 86, plenary power is given to the central government under Section 3. That's a plenary power which the central government takes charge over the entire country. But the rules of 2010 also envisages that the wetlands will be in the states. So naturally, the state government must also have a role in it, and they have also a very onerous responsibility to see that the central government's directives are followed. But sadly, this was not done, and as a result, in 2004 onwards, a case PIL was being filed in the Supreme Court. As you know, in India, it's unique because one thing you should remember in the environmental field in India, it is a judge-driven law. Nowhere in the world the judges interpret the law and make a field of law that is environmental law. And through judicial precedents, as you know, precedents, decisions of the present is the law for the future. These decisions are binding, and in India, for the protection of Taj Mahal, also the Supreme Court had to intervene. You can imagine the amount of apathy, the amount of inaction of the governments at both levels, state and center. Taj Mahal, definitely the blame goes to the UP government. It was becoming a black Taj Mahal. So what has happened, since the water and the land belongs to the state have their own interest. So virtually the clash takes place, and in areas which are wetland, the 2010 rules were not being implemented. And this Bala Subramaniam's case was also going on in the Supreme Court, and it was in 2017 that for the first time the Supreme Court says now we'll put all the chief secretaries to jail if they don't implement, either they don't come up with a new law. And in fact, with the prodding from the court, in 2017, the 2017 rules were brought in, which is in operation. And one of the basic documents, one of the basic powers given under the Act was to prepare a basic document. It also envisaged that the wetlands will now be converted into 3 zones: regulated, permitted, and prohibited. And the prohibition was there would not be any industry, there would not be any construction, there would not be any solid waste dumping site, there would not be any effluents coming through the rivers to that wetland, because if you destroy the wetland, everything is over. Insofar as Deepor Beel is concerned, all the prohibitions envisaged under Section 4 of the 17 Act were being flouted with impunity. Effluents were coming from Pamohi and Bokhisto, Bahini River, I think just behind you, because behind this university is the 2 reserve, Gorbhanga, and that side is Rani. They get the entire pollutants from Guwahati goes there, effluents. So there is a violation. The dumping sites of Guwahati is there. So you can imagine that the 2017's flouting starts from Deepor Beel, just from here, behind our back. So virtually what has happened, as a result, the violation continued, and Deepor Beel, we thought that why not we now bring a case before the High Court, because our idea was that the tribunal after the 2010 amendment, the Green Tribunal Act, all cases of the Supreme Court and High Court on Environment were transferred. And there was a schedule which talked about what are the acts which they will have the powers. Air Act, Water Act, then the Environment Protection Act, the Conservation Act, but one act was left out. And what was that? The Wildlife Act. And we took a cue that if in the Deepor Beel there are animal corridors, elephant corridors from Gorbhanga and Rani, they come to get water, they are also being affected because of the rail line. Because the rail line should not have come from that side, it should have from the northern side. Virtually no policy perspective were there about 20 years back. Our environmentalists or so-called environmentalists or pseudo-environmentalists were making a big hue and cry, but at the field level, no one thought about it. As a result, we brought this case in the Guwahati High Court. Guwahati High Court admitted the case and started passing direction. And always remember, as students of law, PIL is a collaborative litigation. It's not a adversarial litigation. But in India, whenever you go and file a case, either the government or the authorities think that you are fighting against them. That mindset is still there after 70 plus years of independence. They will not appreciate. They will say the case korisa. They take it personally. And as a result, this policy paralysis is there. So we filed a case, rest my friend will elaborate. Only I will just flag certain policy challenges, which if we don't address it, Deepor Beel will not be there. Because Deepor Beel we are already losing. In fact, the worst thing which could have happened is the egregious decision of the state of Assam, a cabinet decision to denotify the entire wildlife sanctuary. As you know, just about a month back, this decision was taken by the Assam cabinet. We expect cabinet to take good decisions for the benefit of the public of Assam. We don't want a decision which basically withdraws the wildlife status. Who were the advisors? We are not concerned, but we are concerned that in environmental field, the younger generation has to be now active. You cannot be in your comfort zone always, because you will be getting the maximum you will be affected by the climate change. And wetland is a classic case. In fact, what I personally feel, when the environmental movement started during the pandemic, the environmental law in India was supposed to be changed by the central government because they got a very good time to change it. No public, no resistance. They did it, but students fought it. And because of the fighting by the students, the central government withdrew certain circulars. EI 2022, where they removed many environmental clearance were not required, like the linear projects. When you make roads, massive construction is going on. As you know, India construction is going now. That's the reason we are 5 times poorer than China. They did their construction 20 years back. We were eating up all the money, corruption. Then these linear projects, no clearance is required. Last week, 2 weeks back, Supreme Court says, no, here also we need it. The amount of trees cut down, compensate it. Compensatory offers you plant 100 times. So many changes are coming up. In the wetland thing, the first important policy challenges which this government has to take in is that there is a dilution of the environmental rules of 17. And this dilution has happened how? The greatest tragedy is that in the wetland area there is no nodal agency. The Deepor Beel is being looked after by many masters. As a result, the end result is a big zero. It is looked after by the municipal authorities, it is looked after by the pollution, it is looked after by the forest department, it is looked after by the biodiversity department, it is looked after by the wildlife department, it is looked after by the urban development department, it is looked after by the metropolitan development department, and the end result is that Mr. Pramod Kolita, who was a resident of that place, if he would not have filed a case, I could not have argued, and we could not have got an order. And Deepor Beel would have died, not its natural death, but forced death. He brought this issue, and we could get an injunction from the court. In fact, always remember, throughout the world, judicial intervention is the last intervention. In the American courts, always remember, the courts are not interfering in environmental field. Doesn't mean that everything is okay. They want the government to repair it. They will come at the last point. But in India, we cannot wait for the government because the government has already done nothing. To the fact that in the Balasubramanian's case, the Supreme Court of India was saying that it seems that the state governments are not at all interested. The central government has not been able to rein in. Second issue, policy perspective, defect which has to be corrected is that the indigenous rights of the people around the Deepor Beel is not considered. Because in India, all policies are a failure because everything comes down from the top-down approach. We need a bottom-up approach because ultimately conservation will be done by the people. You don't expect a forest department or ranger or a ACF or a forest guard to stand in front of a tree and protect a tree. If the people are aware, they will not allow trees to, like the Chipko movement in India. Yes or no? Especially in Jharkhand and all, they are fighting like anything. Because ultimately the coal mines are all taken over. The Adivasi rights are gone. In Dihing Patkai we have seen. There is illegal mining in Assam for the past 20 years. Forget about the good newspapers, not even any journalist. 3 governments didn't care to inform the people of Assam that we don't have permission to do illegal mining. And our case detected it, and now there's an injunction. And also cooperation from the students out there. I'll give credit to students. So I'll call upon you that you have to fight it out. You have to be very clear in your approach, because ultimately if you don't fight, you will not get any benefit. You will be the loser. The third is that there is no clarity on policies. Because of the overlapping of jurisdiction of all the forums, no forum can come up with a good decision. We have seen in our own case, when we have filed the PIL, all are giving their affidavits, but everyone is taking different line. Like the dumping site, I won't say, Mr. Pramod Kolita is the best person. It is unheard of that a dumping site which is prohibited under section 4 of the 17th Act is there in Deepor Beel. What more violation you want? Then another area which has to be looked into is that in certain states of India, like Manipur, they have a wetland paddy and a wetland rule which gives right to the panchayats and the local communities. That's a fantastic rule. We can take cue from that. In Assam, we have a water body Act of 2006. I will call it useless. I'll use a very sharp word. It's not notified also, but the Assam government is saying we have a water body rules. Yes. In fact, many areas around Gorbhanga, those were eco-sensitive areas, green belts, under those Act. Today, everything there is construction. We don't want that to happen in Deepor Beel. I don't want to see a construction in the middle of Deepor Beel. In fact, the wildlife notification which was done in 2009 was giving protection to it. Yes or no? The elephants come in. And that was supposed to be withdrawn. By God's grace, the intervention of the High Court, and we'll make it sure. We have to have that confidence. Our team will make it sure that this Wildlife Act notification has to go. We have to protect Deepor Beel at any cost. Then another area which I have to say is that the rules are plagued by dilution. The dilution is happening. What happens? The judicial activism is there, but to what extent? Because the Supreme Court itself has said that you don't expect the courts to intervene in each and everything. Ultimately, the government will come to a situation where they will think, you have anything, you go to the court. That situation should not come in. We have to empower the government by forcing from the public pressure. The public pressure must be there from the stakeholders, the younger generation, that you do this part. Your policy is your work is to implement the policy, you do it. In fact, what has happened, our environmental story is a subject matter in all the national foreign universities. Always remember, we should be proud. Our laws on Godavari, especially the forest case, is a subject matter of syllabus in Harvard and yes, in Amsterdam and in the Australian and in the Canadian university. They are studying. They are feeling that the Supreme Court is exercising power over 1 billion people and conservation is being done by the courts. In fact, I think they are also having a feeling, I am assuming, that the irresponsibility of the government. So only the courts are exercising the power. And I tell you, there is two imperatives under the environmental law today. One is the developmental imperatives and another is the environmental imperatives. That balancing thing is now changing. I tell you, in the 90s, the court was for development. So only in the Narmada Bachao Andolan case, the dam construction was not stopped. Medha Patkar failed in the 90s. Supreme Court says no dam construction hobo laibo, power or karne. But today, with the destruction taking place, Supreme Court is now shifting its line of thinking and saying no, development hobo na lage, environmental imperatives is more important. So this shifting is going on. And we are a signatory in the Paris conference. Now the climate target is there. Because as you know, the climate targets will not be within 1.5. It will go to 3. And you can imagine that once it goes to 3, what is going to happen. The intersectionalities of wetland rules with the other rules. If we can take the benefit of the other legislation, like in the Wildlife Act, Deepor Beel many laws apply. Forest conservation applies for Gorbhanga and reserve, Rani reserve. You cannot de-reserve. For wetland, 17 rule applies, prohibition. But if we can convert certain areas, especially the elephant corridors, into conservation reserve, giving people the rights, the community, the indigenous people, local people the rights to manage that part, that is a very fantastic thing, where we can, through intersectionality, we can bring in the beneficial provisions of the Wildlife Act to play along with the wetland rules of 17. Next, the Biodiversity Act talks about heritage. The Biodiversity Act talks about biodiversity heritage sites. Why not Deepor Beel? After having the international tag, be given the biodiversity tag, the biodiversity heritage site. It will get more protection under the Biodiversity Act. So, then another very important thing is that the role played by in fact, the 17 rules, the central government took into consideration because it was getting prodding from the Balasubramanian's case. Supreme Court says now the committee will not be headed only by officers. We are going to bring in the politicians also. So as a result, in all the wetland rules, the central wetland and the state wetland rules, you will find that the Minister of Forest in the central government and state government is the chairman. Now you bring the minister. Now the minister comes into the picture. And I personally feel in India, the minister should be brought into the picture because enough of the officers taking responsibility. Because the command and control center is always the minister, but somehow the ministers don't take the responsibility. The writing part, documentation is by the officer. In the wetland rules, we have our honorable ministers. So now, if they do anything in future also, they can be hauled up under the rules. So, at the end, I'll conclude that if we can have a conservation regime where the local indigenous people are brought in for the good works of the government, we will give our support, but we will be independent, and when time comes, we will say no, we will fight the government when we feel that the actions of the government is going against the larger public interest. And in fact, this will be an ongoing dynamic thing because the Deepor Beel case is going on. We'll urge upon the Guwahati High Court to monitor this Deepor Beel for our protection, for our future generation. Thank you.
আজি মোক ইয়াত কিছু মত বিনিময় কৰাৰ বাবে সুযোগ দিয়াৰ কাৰণে আপোনালোকক ধন্যবাদ জনাইছোঁ। আজি আমাৰ মাজত উপস্থিত থকা আমাৰ দেৱজিৎ ছাৰ, বাইদেউ খাটনীয়া ছাৰ বাইদেউসকল আৰু ইয়াত উপবিষ্ট ষ্টুডেণ্টসকল। By profession, I am a cattle farmer and I am also farming some agriculture. কিন্তু ইয়াত যি ধৰণে কৈছে এনভাইৰমেণ্টেলিষ্ট বা এনভাইৰমেণ্টেল এক্টিভিটিজ তেনেকুৱা একো নহয়, জাষ্ট এজ এ কনচিয়াছ পাৰ্চন আৰু সৰুৰ পৰা যিহেতু মই
simplicity of this human being. That is the simplicity of him.
যিহেতু মই দীপৰ বিলৰ ওচৰতে থাকোঁ আৰু দীপৰ বিলখন সৰুৰ পৰা দেখি আছোঁ। যেতিয়া মই স্কুলত গৈছিলোঁ কেনেকৈ মই বৰশী পাইছিলোঁ বা দীপৰ বিলত তেতিয়া এনেকুৱা এটা অৱস্থা আছিলে, আপুনি যদি পইচা এটা দীপৰ বিলত পানীত পেলাই দিয়ে আপুনি সেই পইচাটোও দেখা পাইছিলে। এনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ এটা অৱস্থাৰ পৰা মই দীপৰ বিলখন দেখি যেতিয়া এতিয়া মানে বৰ্তমান দীপৰ বিলখন যেনেকৈ মই দেখোঁ তো বহুত দুখ লাগে। আৰু সদায় যিহেতু মই দীপৰ বিলৰ পাৰতে গৰু চাৰোঁ, দীপৰ বিলৰ প্ৰতিটো বস্তুৱে এটা চিনাকি টাইপ হৈ গৈছে আৰু দীপৰ বিলত কি হৈ আছে, কি হোৱা নাই, কি কাৰণত হৈ আছে, এই সৰু সৰু কথাবোৰ মানে ভাবি 2014 চনৰ মানৰ পৰা প্ৰথমটো মই অকলে আৰম্ভ কৰিছিলোঁ, কিন্তু এতিয়া মোৰ লগত বহুতখিনি মানুহ সংযোগ হৈছে, মানে লিগেল ছাইড হওক, ৰিচাৰ্চ পাৰ্ট হওক, ছ'চিয়েল মিডিয়া হওক বা গ্ৰাউণ্ডতো এনেকুৱা বিভিন্ন কাৰণ সকলোৰে সহযোগিতা পাইছোঁ আৰু দীপৰ বিলখন আমি বচাব লাগে দীপৰ বিল বুলি নহয় আজি ৱেটলেণ্ডৰ এটা মেজৰ ৰুল আছে আমি ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জৰ কথা কৈ আছোঁ ক্লাইমেট একশ্যন ক্লাইমেট ক্ৰাইচিছৰ কথা কৈ আছোঁ আৰু যেতিয়া আমি ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জৰ কথা কওঁ ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জৰ মানে গোটেই কথাখিনি আমি যদি বুজিব লগা হয় বা ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জৰ যি একশ্যন ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জৰ পৰা যিবিলাক হৈ আছে সেইবিলাকৰ পৰা বহুত মানে পৰিমাণে পৰিত্ৰাণ দিয়ে ৱেটলেণ্ডে কাৰণ ৱেটলেণ্ডৰ এটা মেজৰ ৰোল থাকে যিবিলাক ধৰ আজি সৃষ্টি হৈ আছে আজি যদি আপুনি বৰষুণৰ পৰিমাণৰ কথা কয় বৰষুণৰ এভাৰেজ হিচাপে আপুনি ঠিকে থাকিব পাৰে কিন্তু বৰষুণৰ পেটাৰ্ণটো চেঞ্জ হৈছে বৰষুণ দিলে বৰষুণে দি থাকে তেতিয়া পানীটো বেছি হৈ যায় তেতিয়া পানীটো ক'ত যাব তো আল্টিমেটলি সেই ৱাটাৰ ৰিজাৰ্ভাৰ হিচাপে ৱেটলেণ্ডে কাম কৰিব লাগিব আৰু এনেকুৱা যদি হয় কেতিয়াবা বহুত খৰাং দিছে তো আমি পানী ক'ৰ পৰা পাম আল্টিমেটলি ৱেটলেণ্ডে আমাক সেই ৰিজাৰ্ভ হেৰি কৰি ৰাখিব পাৰিব তো এনেকুৱা বিভিন্ন কাৰণ আছে যিবিলাক কাৰণে ধৰ আমি আজি ৱেটলেণ্ডৰ ওপৰত বহুত গুৰুত্ব দিব লগা হৈ পৰিছে কিন্তু দুৰ্ভাগ্যৰ কথা আজি দীপৰ বিলটো গুৱাহাটীত আছে কাৰণে সদায় দীপৰ বিলৰ নাম ওলাই থাকে কিন্তু অসমত এনেকুৱা বহুত ৱেটলেণ্ড আছে যিবিলাক হয়তো এতিয়া লাহে লাহে শেষ হৈ গৈ আছে আৰু এনেকৈ যদি ৱেটলেণ্ডবিলাক গৈ থাকে এটা সময়ত আমি এনেকুৱা এটা দিন আহিব বুলি মই মানে ধাৰণা কৰিব পাৰোঁ যে আমি হয়তো তেতিয়া আমাৰ হাতত সময়ো নাথাকিব সুযোগো নাথাকিব যে আমি এইটো কিয় নকৰিলোঁ তো এই কথাখিনিয়ে যেতিয়া মোৰ সৰু ছোৱালী এজনী আছে যেতিয়া এই ছোৱালীজনীৰ কাৰণে যদি মই ভাল এটা পৰিৱেশ দি যাব নোৱাৰোঁ মই যিহেতু দীপৰ বিলখন ওচৰতে আছে কালি যদি দীপৰ বিলখন মৰা ভৰুৰ দৰে হৈ যায় তো কালি চাগে মোক মোৰ ছোৱালীজনীয়ে কুৱেশ্যন কৰিব আপুনি কি কৰিলে আপুনি এনেকুৱা এটা পৰিৱেশ আমাক দি থ'ল তেতিয়া কিয় নকৰিলে তো সেনেকুৱা কিছুমান মনৰ কথা ভাবিয়ে এই যুঁজ বুলিয়ে কৈছোঁ দীপৰ বিল কনজাৰ্ভেশ্যনৰ দীপৰ বিল কনজাৰ্ভেশ্যন আমি তিনিটা মানে পাৰ্টত আমি কৰি আছোঁ কেতিয়াবা আমি যদি প্ৰটেষ্ট কৰিব লগা হয় প্ৰটেষ্ট কৰোঁ দীপৰ বিল আজি যেনেকৈ আহিছোঁ দীপৰ বিলৰ মত বিনিময় কৰিছোঁ এজ এ পাৰ্ট অফ দীপৰ বিল কনজাৰ্ভেশ্যন যিটো আমি এতিয়া এটা কেম্পেইনিং চলাই আছোঁ দীপৰ বিল নিডছ ইউ কাৰণ দীপৰ বিল এতিয়া দীপৰ বিলে মাতি আছে আমাক বোলে মোক বচোৱা আৰু বাকী লিগেল ফাইটটো আছে তো আমাৰ দেৱজিৎ ছাৰে কোনো ফিজ নোহোৱাকৈ আমাক এইখিনি সহায় কৰি আছে তো তেখেতক তাৰ কাৰণে এটা মানে হাত চাপিলে কৰিব লাগে তো গোটেই মানে এই বস্তুখিনিকে অলপমান মই দেখুৱাব বিচাৰিছোঁ দীপৰ বিলৰ কেনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ হেৰি আৰু দীপৰ বিলৰ মেইনলি কথাখিনি জানে দীপৰ বিলটো গুৱাহাটীতে আছে আৰু আগতে দীপৰ বিল গুৱাহাটীৰ ছাইডত থকা বুলি কৈছিলে এতিয়া দীপৰ বিল মাজত হৈ গৈছে যিহেতু চিটিখন এক্সপানশ্যন হৈ আছে এতিয়া দীপৰ বিল মানে গুৱাহাটীতে এতিয়া দীপৰ বিলৰ এই যিটো কথা আমি কৈ আছোঁ দীপৰ বিলখন সৰু হৈ গৈ আছে সৰু হোৱাৰ মূলতে দীপৰ বিলখন যদি আমি আৰম্ভণিৰ কথা ভাবোঁ দীপৰ বিলখন আজি যি জালুকবাৰী আছে যিটো জালুকবাৰীৰ মেইন পইণ্ট আছে তাৰ পৰা ইঞ্জিনিয়াৰিং কলেজৰ এই আপোনাৰ আয়ুৰ্বেদিক কলেজ হয় সেই পাৰ্টৰে সোমাই আহি গোটেই এই অঞ্চলবিলাক কি আছিলে এটা সময়ত দীপৰ বিলে আছিলে আৰু এই কথাখিনি আমি আগতে ধৰক সেই কৰিছিলোঁ কিন্তু এই কথাখিনি শেহতীয়াভাৱে যিখন এক্সপানশ্যন মানে GMDৰ মাষ্টাৰ প্লেন আছে তাতো সেই কথাখিনি উল্লেখ কৰিছে কেতিয়া কেতিয়া দীপৰ বিল সৰু হৈ গৈ আছে কিন্তু দীপৰ বিল সৰু হোৱাৰ মূলতে ইয়াত যেনেকৈ দেখুৱাই আছে প্ৰথম যিখন মানে পিকচাৰ আছে দীপৰ বিলখন সেই অৰিজিনেল পিকচাৰখন আছিলে যিটো সদিলাপুৰৰ পৰা এই জালুকবাৰী হৈ এই পাৰ্টটোত এনেকৈ দীপৰ বিলখন এটা পাৰ্ট হিচাপে আগত আছিলে যেতিয়া বহুত মানে ব্ৰিটিছৰ সময়ৰ আগত আৰু তাৰ পাছত যেতিয়া ধৰ কিছুমান ডেভেলপমেণ্ট এক্টিভিটিজ হ'ল কাৰণ ডেভেলপমেণ্টটো এটা পাৰ্ট যিহেতু তো তেনেকৈ ধৰ আছাম ইঞ্জিনিয়াৰিং কলেজ আয়ুৰ্বেদিক কলেজ এই পাৰ্টটো যেতিয়া এটা হ'ল তেনেকৈ এই হ'ল আকৌ বাকী পাৰ্ট হ'ল যেতিয়া জালুকবাৰীৰ পৰা খানাপাৰালৈকে বাইপাছটো গ'ল বাইপাছটো যোৱালৈকে আপুনি এতিয়াও চাব কামাখ্যা ষ্টেচনৰ ওচৰত এনেকুৱা মানে মেটেকা চেটেকা এতিয়াও আপুনি দেখা পাব য'ত জাষ্ট এইটো পাৰ্টটোত তো সেই পাৰ্টটো দীপৰ বিলৰ এটা অংশ থকা বুলি আগতে কৈছিলে লাষ্ট যিটো 1991 যিটো কামাখ্যাৰ পৰা আজাৰা হৈ যিটো ৰেলৱে ট্ৰেক গ'ল ৰেলৱে ট্ৰেক যোৱাৰ পাছত দীপৰ বিলৰ বাকী পাৰ্টটো সৰু হৈ গ'ল তো তেনেকৈ বিভিন্ন ডেভেলপমেণ্ট এতিয়া আকৌ শেহতীয়াভাৱে আপোনাৰ এয়াৰপৰ্ট যিটো এক্সপানশ্যন কৰি আছে এয়াৰপৰ্টৰ যিটো 6 লেন এটা বনাই আছে 6 লেন নে 4 লেন ধাৰাপুৰ হৈ গড়ল হৈ এতিয়া তাতো কনষ্ট্ৰাকশ্যন আৰম্ভ কৰিছে তো এনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ ডেভেলপমেণ্ট কিছুমান এক্টিভিটিজ আছে যিবিলাক এক্টিভিটিছে কি হৈছে দীপৰ বিলখন সৰু হৈ গৈ আছে আজি ৰেলৱে ট্ৰেকটো যেতিয়া গৈছিলে ৰেলৱে ট্ৰেকটো যোৱাৰ পাছত যিটো বৰাগাঁও আৰু পামহি ছাইডত প্ৰায় প্ৰথম 120 বিঘা ডাম্পিং গ্ৰাউণ্ড কৰিব দিলে মানে তাৰ পাছত শ্বহীদ উদ্যান দিলে IST বা এনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ বিভিন্ন মানে অনুষ্ঠান প্ৰতিষ্ঠানক চৰকাৰে সেই মাটিবিলাক দি দিলে কাৰণ সেই জেগাবিলাক কি হয় আমাৰ বেছিভাগ ৱেটলেণ্ড হিচাপে নটিফাই হৈ নাথাকে সেইবিলাক কি হিচাপে থাকে গভৰ্ণমেণ্ট লেণ্ড হিচাপে থাকে আৰু যেতিয়া গভৰ্ণমেণ্ট লেণ্ড হিচাপে থাকে গভৰ্ণমেণ্ট লেণ্ড হিচাপে গভৰ্ণমেণ্টে যিকোনো হেৰিক গভৰ্ণমেণ্টৰ যেতিয়া লগা হয় বিভিন্ন কামত ব্যৱহাৰ কৰিব পাৰে কিন্তু শেহতীয়াভাৱে ধৰ ৱেটলেণ্ডৰ সেই তেতিয়াৰ যিটো চিনাৰিঅ' মানে ৱেটলেণ্ডৰ গুৰুত্ব আৰু আজি যি আমি ভুক্তভোগী যিটো ৱেটলেণ্ডৰ মানে ৱেটলেণ্ড সংৰক্ষণৰ বিলাক চিন্তাবিলাক আমি আৰম্ভ কৰিছোঁ তো তেতিয়া চাগে সেই চিন্তাবিলাক হোৱা নাছিলে কাৰণে এনেকুৱা ধৰণে বিভিন্ন ধৰণৰ অনুষ্ঠান প্ৰতিষ্ঠান সেই ঠাইসমূহত মানে এষ্টাব্লিছ হোৱাৰ কাৰণে দীপৰ বিলখন সৰু হ'ল কিন্তু এতিয়াও সময় আছে আমি যেতিয়া আজি দীপৰ বিলখন আমি হেৰি কৰিব লগা হয় সংৰক্ষণ কৰিব লগা হয় আজি যদি আমি যিখিনি আছে এইখিনিও যদি বচাব পাৰোঁ তো তাৰ চাগে আৰু ভৱিষ্যত দিনলৈকে আৰু যাতে এনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ সৰু সৰু এনেকুৱা প্ৰজেক্টৰ কাৰণে হওক বা যিকোনো কাৰণতে হওক মানে দীপৰ বিলখন যাতে সৰু হৈ নাযায় নহ'লে কি হ'ব আপোনাৰ গুৱাহাটী চিটিৰ আপোনাৰ মেক্সিমাম পানী দীপৰ বিলে গ্ৰহণ কৰে আপোনাৰ মৰা ভৰলু বশিষ্ঠ বাহিনী আপটো খানাপাৰাৰ পৰা মানে সেইফালে ধৰ ভৰলুৰ পৰা গোটেই পাৰ্টটো পানীবিলাক দীপৰ বিলে বন্ধ কৰে যদি দীপৰ বিল নাথাকিলে হয় চাগে আজি যেতিয়া বৰষুণৰ ছিজন আহিব মনচুন ছিজন আহিব আমি আৰ্টিফিচিয়েল ফ্লাডত চাগে প্ৰায় 6 মাহ বিভিন্ন জেগাত থাকিব লগা হ'লহেঁতেন কাৰণ দীপৰ বিলে গোটেই পানীবিলাক মানে ৰিজাৰ্ভ কৰি আমাক কি কৰি আছে এটা মহৎ উপকাৰ সাধন কৰি আছে কিন্তু তাৰ বিনিময়ত আমি কি দি আছোঁ দীপৰ বিলক তাৰ বিনিময়ত আমি ড্ৰেইনত প্লাষ্টিক পেলাইছোঁ ক'ৰবাত প্লাষ্টিক খাই কিনে পেলাইছোঁ সেই ড্ৰেইনৰ পৰা বাৰিষাৰ পানীয়ে মৰা ভৰলু বশিষ্ঠ বাহিনী তিনিটা যিকোনো নদীত পেলাইছে আৰু তাৰ পৰা গৈ কিনে কি কৰিছে দীপৰ বিলত এনেদৰে মই দেখুৱাইছোঁ এটা স্লেজ এনেদৰে দীপৰ বিলত এই জাবৰবিলাক ড্ৰেইনেৰে যোৱা আমি খাই কিনে পেলোৱা যিকোনো বস্তু য'ত ড্ৰেইনত পেলাই আছোঁ সেই ড্ৰেইনে মৰা ভৰলুত যাই জমা কৰে আৰু বাৰিষা বাঢ়নি পানীয়ে এনেদৰে ডাঙৰ ডাঙৰ জাবৰৰ দাম দীপৰ বিলত পেলাই গৈ তো এই সৰু সৰু কথা আজি আমি ভাবিব নোৱাৰোঁ আপোনাৰ আমাৰ ঘৰৰ ধৰ সৰু এটা জাবৰৰ টপলাৰ কাৰণে এনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ জাবৰৰ পাহাৰ হ'ব পাৰে আমি ঘৰৰ পৰা যেতিয়া আমি জাবৰ সৰু টপলাটো ৰাতিপুৱা দি দিওঁ GMC বা GMD তেতিয়া আমি নাভাবোঁ তেখেতসকলে ক'ত লৈ যায় খালি আমাৰ ধৰ যিহেতু এটা পাৰ্ট তো সেই অলপ অলপ প্ৰতিঘৰ মানুহৰ অলপ অলপ জাবৰে এনেকুৱা এখন পাহাৰৰ সৃষ্টি কৰিছে আৰু যিখন পাহাৰে আজি দীপৰ বিলক ধ্বংসৰ গৰালৈ ঠেলি দিছে আৰু এইটো মই কোৱা কথা নহয় শেহতীয়া যিটো পলিউশ্যন কণ্ট্ৰল বৰ্ডৰ ৰিপৰ্ট আছে সেই ৰিপৰ্টতো এইটো উল্লেখ কৰিছে তেখেতসকলে যে দীপৰ বিলৰ পানী কণ্টামিনেশ্যন হৈছে আৰু কণ্টামিনেশ্যন হোৱাৰ মূলতে হ'ল ডাম্পিং গ্ৰাউণ্ড আৰু যিবিলাক ধৰ ড্ৰেইনিং ছিষ্টেম দীপৰ বিলৰ লগত কানেক্ট কৰা গৈছে মৰা ভৰলু বশিষ্ঠ বাহিনী এই নদীসমূহ যেতিয়া কানেক্ট কৰিছে কানেক্ট কৰাৰ ফলত এইটো পামহি নদী যিখন ব্ৰিজৰ তলেৰে আপোনাৰ দীপৰ বিলত সোমাই গৈ তো এই গোটেই ড্ৰেইনিং ছিষ্টেমটো কানেক্ট হোৱাৰ কাৰণে আৰু সেই পানীবিলাক ডাইৰেক্টলি আমি পেলাই আছোঁ পলিউটেড আৰু মৰা ভৰলুৰ কথাটো সকলোৱে জানে কিমান পলিউটেড ৱাটাৰ এতিয়াও আপুনি যদি গড়চুকৰ পৰা জাষ্ট সোমাই এখন ব্ৰিজ পায় তাত যদি থিয়া হৈ চাই সেই ক'লা পানীবিলাক গৈয়ে আছে আৰু সেই ক'লা পানীবিলাক ক'লৈ গৈ আছে দীপৰ বিললৈকে গৈ আছে ঠিক এনেকৈ শেহতীয়াভাৱে এই ডাম্পিং গ্ৰাউণ্ডটো মানে এনেকৈ জ্বলি আছে যোৱা 15 ফেব্ৰুৱাৰীৰ পৰা আজিৰ তাৰিখলৈকে জ্বলি আছে আৰু শেহতীয়া যিটো পলিউশ্যন কণ্ট্ৰল বৰ্ডৰ এই ৰিপৰ্টত যদিনা 16 তাৰিখে পলিউশ্যন কণ্ট্ৰল বৰ্ডৰ ৰিপৰ্টত প্ৰায় 424 এয়াৰ কোৱালিটিৰ হেৰি আহিছে PM10ৰ হেৰি তো যিটো মানে এতিয়া ইয়াত দিয়া মতে তেখেতসকলে কি কৰিছে 100 মানে ধৰ হেৰিটো আছিলে কিন্তু 424 কিমান হাই মানে আজি গুৱাহাটী পলিউটেড হোৱাৰ মূলত এটা ডাম্পিং গ্ৰাউণ্ডটো যিটো 15 ফেব্ৰুৱাৰীৰ পৰা জ্বলি আছে সেইও এটা কাৰণ অকল আমিয়ে ভুক্তভোগী হৈ থকা নাই ইয়াৰ গুৱাহাটীৰ জলবায়ু যেতিয়া বেয়া হৈছে চবেইতো সেইটো সেৱন কৰি আছে তো ফাৰ্ষ্ট ভিক্টিম হয়তো আমি হ'ব পাৰোঁ কিন্তু লাহে লাহে কিন্তু সকলোৱে ইয়াৰ ভিক্টিম হ'ব লগা হ'ব এনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ এটা আমি পৰিৱেশ কেতিয়াও দীপৰ বিলত নিবিচাৰোঁ বা গুৱাহাটীত নিবিচাৰোঁ কাৰণ দীপৰ বিলৰ দীপৰ বিলে আমাক যি দি আছে তাৰ বিনিময়ত আমি দীপৰ বিলক কি দি আছোঁ তো তাৰ বিনিময়ত দীপৰ বিলক আমি বেয়া কৰি আছোঁ মৃত্যুৰ বোলে ঠেলি দি আছোঁ কিন্তু দীপৰ বিলে আমাক মৃত্যুৰ মুখৰ পৰা কি কৰি আছে বচাই আছে তো এইটো কেতিয়াও মানে জাষ্টিফাই নহয় তো সেইকাৰণে আমি যিটো দীপৰ বিল নিডছ ইউ বুলি এটা কেম্পেইনিং চলাই আছোঁ এই কেম্পেইনিংটোত আপোনালোকেও সহযোগ কৰিব এইখন ৰামচাৰ ছাইডৰ মেপ আৰু যিখন ৰামচাৰ ছাইডৰ মেপত আপোনাৰ এইখন দিয়া মতে এটা ছাইডে কামাখ্যা ষ্টেচনৰ ওচৰৰ পৰা সেইফালে ধাৰাপুৰলৈকে এইফালে আজাৰা ষ্টেচনলৈকে দীপৰ বিলখন আছে ৰামচাৰ ছাইড হিচাপে তো আমি ৰামচাৰ ছাইডৰ ডিমাৰ্কেশ্যনটো আমাৰ PLOতো আনিছোঁ শেহতীয়াভাৱে চাগে নেক্সট হিয়াৰিঙত DC মহোদয়ক ইয়াৰ ওপৰত মানে বিস্তৃত বিৱৰণ দিব কৈছে নেক্সট মেত আছে তো এই ৰামচাৰ ছাইডটো যদি কনজাৰ্ভেশ্যন কৰিব মানে দীপৰ বিলত দুটা পাৰ্ট আছে এজ এ ৱাইল্ড লাইফ চেঞ্চুৰী আৰু এটা ৰামচাৰ ছাইড আৰু ৰামচাৰ ছাইডটো ৱাইল্ড লাইফ চেঞ্চুৰী ইনক্লুড হৈ আছে কিন্তু মানে ৱাইল্ড লাইফ চেঞ্চুৰীটো 4.1 স্কোৱাৰ কিলোমিটাৰ আৰু ৰামচাৰ ছাইডৰ বাকী ইনক্লুডিং ৱাইল্ড লাইফ চেঞ্চুৰী আৰু বেলেগ অংশ ৰামচাৰ ছাইডত সোমাই আছে যিটো আজিলৈকে নটিফাই হোৱা নাই 2002 চনতে দীপৰ বিল ৰামচাৰ ছাইড ঘোষণা হ'ল কিন্তু আজিলৈকে কোনেও নাজানে ৰামচাৰ ছাইড কোনটো কাৰণ ৰামচাৰ ছাইডৰ আজিলৈকে ডিমাৰ্কেশ্যন হোৱা নাই কাৰণ 2002 চনত হ'লে 2024 22 বছৰে ৰামচাৰ ছাইডৰ সীমাই নিৰ্ধাৰণ হোৱা নাই তো আমি কিমান গুৰুত্ব দিছোঁ জলাশয় সংৰক্ষণত তাৰপৰাই আমি গম পাব পাৰোঁ তো শেহতীয়াভাৱে আমাৰ পিআইলত এইটো আহিছে অহাৰ পাছত এতিয়া চাগে ৰামচাৰ ছাইড ডিমাৰ্কেশ্যন হ'ব বুলি আমি আশা কৰিছোঁ ৰামচাৰ ছাইড ডিমাৰ্কেশ্যন হ'লে ৱাইল্ড লাইফ চেঞ্চুৰী ডিমাৰ্কেশ্যন হৈ গৈছে 2014 চনৰ মে' মাহত হৈছে তাত কিন্তু কোনো বেদখল হোৱা নাই আমি ডাইৰেক্টলি ক'ব পাৰোঁ কিন্তু ৰামচাৰ ছাইডত মানে ডিমাৰ্কেশ্যন নোহোৱাৰ কাৰণে আমি ডাইৰেক্ট পইণ্ট আউট কৰিব নোৱাৰোঁ তাত কনষ্ট্ৰাকশ্যন হৈছে নে হোৱা নাই যেতিয়া ডিমাৰ্কেশ্যন হৈছে তাৰ ডিমাৰ্কেশ্যন হোৱাৰ পাছত কি সোমায় তেতিয়া গম পাম বোলে দীপৰ বিলত এনক্ৰ'চমেণ্ট হৈছে নে ইলিগেল কনষ্ট্ৰাকশ্যন হৈছে কি হৈছে তো সেইটোৰ কাৰণে ৰামচাৰ ছাইডটো মানে সংৰক্ষণ কৰা অতি গুৰুত্বপূৰ্ণ কাৰণ ৰামচাৰ ছাইড হিচাপে 2024 চনৰ ফেব্ৰুৱাৰী মাহত যিটো ৱেটলেণ্ডৰ ইম্পৰ্টেঞ্চ মানে ইণ্টাৰনেশ্যনেল ৱেটলেণ্ড ইম্পৰ্টেঞ্চৰ লিষ্ট এখন ওলাইছিলে তাত আকৌ দীপৰ বিলৰ নামটো সন্নিৱিষ্ট হৈছে কাৰণ দীপৰ বিল মানে মাইগ্ৰেটৰী বাৰ্ডছৰ ৰুট লিষ্টত পৰে যিটো মাইগ্ৰেটৰী বাৰ্ডছবিলাকে যিটো ৰুট ফ'ল' কৰে দীপৰ বিলটো তাৰ এটা পাৰ্ট হয় কিন্তু দীপৰ বিলটো যদি ধ্বংস হৈ যায় সেই ৰুটত কি হ'ব বাধাৰ সৃষ্টি হ'ব বাধা হ'লে আৰু মাইগ্ৰেটৰী বাৰ্ডছবিলাক যেনেদৰে আহে অসমত চাগে ধৰ বাধা পোৱাৰ লগে লগে আৰু সেই ৰুটটো তেখেতসকলৰ কি হৈ যাব খেলি মেলি হৈ যাব তো দীপৰ বিল সেইকাৰণে মানে ইণ্টাৰনেশ্যনেলি ইম্পৰ্টেঞ্চ হয় কাৰণ আমি যেতিয়া এই কথাবিলাক কওঁ যেতিয়া ধৰ আনপ্লেন ডেভেলপমেণ্ট বুলি কৈছোঁ আনপ্লেন ডেভেলপমেণ্ট বুলি কোৱাৰ লগে লগে এই কনষ্ট্ৰাকশ্যন বা এনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ কথাবিলাক যি কাৰণতেই নহওক গভৰ্ণমেণ্টে ৰাস্তা ঘাটৰ বা এইটো ধাৰাপুৰৰ ছাইডত এই মাটি কাৰ ম্যাদী মাটি নে কি মাটি এইটো বেলেগ কথা কিন্তু এইটো এটা কি হয় ৱেটলেণ্ড কেৰেক্টাৰিষ্টিকৰ লেণ্ড হয় কাৰণ মাটিৰ কেৰেক্টাৰিষ্টিকবিলাক ধৰ কিছুমান ধৰ ৰেচিডেঞ্চিয়েল থাকে এগ্ৰিকালচাৰ থাকে আৰু এইটো মানে হেৰিটো যিয়ে নহওক ম্যাদী হওক বা যিয়ে নহওক কিন্তু কেৰেক্টাৰটো কি আছে ৱেটলেণ্ড আছে আৰু শেহতীয়া আমি প্ৰতি বছৰ প্ৰতি হেৰিতে 4 মাহৰ মূৰে দীপৰ বিলৰ বাৰ্ডছটো আমি কাউণ্ট কৰি থাকোঁ কি বাৰ্ডছ আহিলে কি বাৰ্ডছ নাহিলে তো এনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ হেৰিবিলাক আমি কাউণ্ট কৰি থাকোঁ কাউণ্ট কৰিলে এই যিখিনি ঠাই আছে য'ত এতিয়া মানে তেখেতসকলে কিবা ৰটাৰী নে কি বনাব বুলি শুনি আছোঁ তো ইয়াত প্ৰায় 97 স্পেচিছ বাৰ্ড আমি পাইছোঁ তো আৰু এনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ যেতিয়া ডেভেলপমেণ্ট হেবিটেটবিলাক নষ্ট হৈ যাব হেবিটেট নষ্ট হ'লে তাত চৰাইৰ সংখ্যাটো আকৌ কমি যোৱাৰ লগে লগে আৰু এনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ ফিলাপে কি কৰিব ৱাটাৰ ৰিজাৰ্ভ কেপাচিটিটো কমাই আনিব যেতিয়া ৱাটাৰ ৰিজাৰ্ভ কেপাচিটি কমাই আনিব তেতিয়া আল্টিমেটলি আমি আকৌ কৃত্ৰিম বানপানীত বেছিকৈ ভুগিব লাগিব তো এই কথাবিলাকে আমাক কিয় ৱেটলেণ্ড লাগে তো ৱেটলেণ্ড অকল আমি ভাবোঁ কি জীৱ জন্তু বা হেৰিৰ কাৰণে ৱেটলেণ্ড লাগে তেনেকুৱা নহয় জীৱ জন্তুৰ কাৰণে যিদৰে অপৰিহাৰ্য ৱেটলেণ্ড আমাৰ মানুহৰ কাৰণেও একেদৰে অপৰিহাৰ্য কাৰণ ৱেটলেণ্ডে আমাক মানে ইক'চিষ্টেম ছাৰ্ভিচেছ মই যিধৰণে ক'লোঁ আপোনাৰ আৰ্টিফিচিয়েল ফ্লাড কণ্ট্ৰলৰে হওক বা যিটো বায়ু ধৰ যিটো হেৰি কৰে পৰিশোধন কৰা মানে ৱেটলেণ্ডৰ যিবিলাক ধৰ একুৱেটিক প্লেণ্ট আছে নৰ্মেল যিটো ফৰেষ্টতকৈ ৱেটলেণ্ড ইক'চিষ্টেমে বেছি কাৰ্বন ডাই অক্সাইড গ্ৰহণ কৰি ল'ব পাৰে আৰু যিমানে বেছি কাৰ্বন ডাই অক্সাইড যিহেতু ৱেটলেণ্ডে গ্ৰহণ কৰি ল'ব পাৰে সি আমাক ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জত কি কৰে যথেষ্টখিনি সহায় কৰে ঠিক এনেদৰে দীপৰ বিলত মানুহক লাইভলিহুড দি আছে মাছমৰীয়া মানুহখিনি আজি বছৰ ধৰি দীপৰ বিলত মাছ মাৰি আছে ওচৰতে দোকান পোহাৰবিলাক চলি আছে তো দীপৰ বিলৰ ওপৰত বেছ কৰি তো দীপৰ বিলে কি কৰি আছে আমাক লাইভলিহুড দি আছে ঠিক তেনেদৰে ৱাটাৰ ৰিজাৰ্ভাৰ হিচাপে কাম কৰি আছে আৰ্টিফিচিয়েল ফ্লাডৰ পৰা আমাক বচাই আছে আৰু আটাইতকৈ ডাঙৰ কথা আমাক গুৱাহাটীৰ যিটো গ্ৰাউণ্ড ৱাটাৰ ৰিচাৰ্চ কৰাত দীপৰ বিলে সহায় কৰি আছে আৰু য'ত আজি ৱেটলেণ্ডবিলাক নোহোৱা হৈ গৈ আছে আজি দীপৰ বিল যদি নোহোৱা হৈ যায় আজি বেংগলোৰৰ দৰে চাগে কিছু বছৰৰ ভিতৰত আমি ৱাটাৰ ক্ৰাইচিছত ভুগিব লাগিব তো দীপৰ বিল আমাৰ কাৰণে অত্যন্ত প্ৰয়োজন আজি তাৰিখত যদি আমি দীপৰ বিলক নবচাওঁ বা দীপৰ বিলৰ দৰে ৱেটলেণ্ড অকল দীপৰ বিলে নহয় দীপৰ বিলৰ দৰে যিকোনো ৱেটলেণ্ডক যদি আমি মৃত্যুৰ মুখত ঠেলি দিওঁ তাৰ ওচৰ চুবুৰীয়া বা বহুত জেগাত আমি কি হ'ম এনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ বিভিন্ন সমস্যাৰ সন্মুখীন হ'ম যিটো অনাগত দিনত চাগে যদি সেই ৱেটলেণ্ডবিলাক নাথাকে আমি ভুগিব লাগিব তো এই কথাবিলাকে আমি আৰম্ভ কৰি এতিয়া এই বিভিন্ন মাধ্যমৰ থ্ৰুৱেদি আমি দীপৰ বিলক আপোনালোকক সহায়ৰ প্ৰয়োজন কাৰণ দীপৰ বিল মৃত্যুমুখী হৈ আছে দীপৰ বিলক যদি মৰিব দিওঁ এটা সময়ত আগে দীপৰ বিল মৰিব পাছে আমি হয়তো মৰিব লাগিব কাৰণ দীপৰ বিলৰ সেই কথাবিলাকে কৰি আজি আমি বিভিন্ন ধৰ কেম্পেইনিং চলাই আছোঁ বা কেতিয়াবা প্ৰটেষ্ট কৰি আছোঁ আৰু এতিয়া লিগেল ফাইট এটা চলি আছে তো এনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ বিভিন্ন হেৰি আমি কাম কৰি আছোঁ আপোনালোকে আমাক সহায় কৰক বিভিন্ন মাধ্যমৰ থ্ৰুৱেদি আৰু আপোনালোকৰ যিকোনো ধৰ ৰিচাৰ্চ পাৰপাছতো আপোনালোকে আমাক সহায় কৰিব পাৰে আপোনালোকৰ ইউনিভাৰ্চিটিৰ ফালৰ পৰা বিভিন্ন যেটো আপোনালোকৰ ডিপাৰ্টমেণ্ট আছে ৱাটাৰ কোৱালিটি হওক বা একুৱেটিক মানে প্লান্টৰ হওক বা বিভিন্ন ক্ষেত্ৰৰ ফালৰ পৰা তো আমাক সহায় কৰক এইখিনি কৈ মোৰ চমু বক্তব্য মই সামৰি মানিছোঁ ধন্যবাদ
So thank you once again Pramod ji. आप माने people like you, आप लोगों के जैसे लोग हैं जो fight कर रहे हैं at the ground level, because of which we get hope that yes, some people are still there who fight for the environment. Today we were having a conversation with Dr. Barua and he was saying, do you think a fetus has rights? So we are talking about fetus rights, we're talking about persons with disabilities rights, we're talking about our rights. तो हम लोगों के rights तो होते ही हैं. We have the right to not listen in a lecture, walk out of a lecture room, even if the seminar is going on. So we all have rights, yes, but does the environment have any rights? Does nature have any rights? Has anyone questioned that? That is the issue. I invite Mrinmoy to give his presentation. Thank you so much.
The biggest threat to the wetland of Deepor Beel came in 1989 when the policy decision was made to get the railway track across the Deepor Beel. And there were reports by the Chief Secretary, Additional Chief Secretary, that it was not feasible because it will harm the ecology and the wildlife pattern which exists there, including animal corridors. So the railway track is supposed to be taken through the northern bank. And the railways also agreed to that. But somehow, and reasons best known to them, the railway track didn't go through the northern boundary. It went through the southern boundary in spite of protest lodged by the forest department. And that is the first policy of the government that caused threat to the existence of Deepor Beel. And later on, in 2002, when it was declared as a Ramsar site, as you have known now, there is no boundary of that Ramsar site. It's still a wetland. It's not even notified as wetland till today, because of which it is under the revenue khas land. And people, they fill up the land because it's a revenue khas land, and this protection under the rules do not come in. So in our PIL, what we have prayed for is, first of all, we wanted a change in the railway track because they wanted to put a double track now with an electric line going through there. That was the another problem. Already 15 elephants have died since the track came into existence here, because it went through the Gorbanga Reserve Forest and a lot of trees were cut when this railway line came, and those animal corridors were crisscrossed by this track. And it is very heartening to see. I went through one video. The elephants were crossing the railway line, and then at that time the train came in, and there were little elephant calves. What the railway people did to change the animal corridor, they dug holes, they dug ditches on the side of the track, and these elephant calves fell down on the ditch, and the mother was trying to pick it up while the herd has crossed it. And so there are some people like Pramod Kolita who are known as Hati Bundhu. They are friends of the elephant. They keep guard on the track to notify the railway authorities that elephants are crossing. That is done honorarily. And one of them person, Mr. Sri Kalia Boro, he even in fact gave his life for the elephants. He was crushed by the train while trying to stop the train because there was fog that time. So that is the first policy which has, in fact, I would say, has started the destruction of the Deepor Beel. Second is the solid waste management. Although we have a Solid Waste Management Act, there is no policy of the government to mitigate this problem permanently. Our solid waste are just dumped, as you have seen in the screen, the huge mountains of garbage. That is called legacy waste. That legacy waste needs to be taken out and processed. Then there was a case in the Supreme Court wherein directions were made in that Balakrishnan's case on the affidavit of the member secretary of Central Wetlands Authority, and that those affidavits were supposed to be taken up by the High Courts as suo motu case, whether these rules were followed or not. And as per that direction, a suo motu case for protection of Deepor Bill was taken up by the Guwahati High Court. And in that case, the government had promised that by July 23, a solid waste management plant will come into function. But till now, we haven't seen that. So a lot of things are told in the courts on affidavits, but at ground level, it doesn't happen. And third thing is that since we do not have a perimeter of the Ramsar site, under the central wetland management rules, we cannot fix the eco-sensitive zone. So in our PIL, we had made a prayer for fixing the eco-sensitive zone, and on this count, since February 2024, the government was saying that they have a draft of eco-sensitive zone and it has been sent to the Delhi for vetting. Then it will come here and it will be passed by the cabinet, and thereafter it will go to the central government and the eco-sensitive zone will be notified. We were very happy with that submissions and the statements made by the government. But completely after March 10th, a cabinet decision was taken. We did not come to know what was happening there. We came to know through some newspaper reports that the Pobitora Wildlife Sanctuary and the Deepor Bill Wildlife Sanctuary has been denotified. Then I talked with Mr. Das and Pramod Kolita what to do. But in the meantime, another environmentalist, Rohit Chaudhary, he moved the Supreme Court against the denotification of the Pobitora Wildlife Sanctuary. And that was immediately stayed. And taking a cue on that, we filed a miscase in the Guwahati High Court. And we said that no notification should come out because a wildlife sanctuary cannot be denotified by a cabinet decision. It has to pass through the state legislature, accepted by the National Board of Wildlife, and with the permission of the Supreme Court in one of those orders that they had passed, Godavarman's case. But still, since the decision was taken, we were very skeptical about it, and we thought that at any moment, if this notification comes out, denotifying the wildlife sanctuary, then many things can happen. Like buildings might come up overnight, it might be filled up, and it may be the death blow to Deepor Bill. Since all these things were placed before the court also saw the order sheet from time to time what the government have promised and now where they have come to. And as an abundant caution, they have stayed this cabinet decision and said that no notification for denotifying the wildlife sanctuary of Deepor Bill can be passed now till disposal of our case. So that is the present position. And in our case, we have made as much as 18 parties for protection of Deepor Bill. The railway track, the railways have filed their affidavit. They have said now that they will not go for double track. So that is one win for us. But secondly, they are not going to the northern boundary, but they will go for an elevated corridor so that elephants can pass underneath. So there is a little bit of win for us, although we could not uproot the whole railway track and pass it through the northern boundary, because if it goes through the northern boundary, it's a populated area. Government would have to acquire the land and pay compensation and take it. So might as well they have taken it through this wetland, which is nothing but a government khas land since it is not notified till date. But on paper, it is always there that Deepor Bill is a Ramsar site since 2002, and there's a lot of marketing by Assam Tourism Department also that they will come up with water sports and all that. But these are all prohibited under the Central Wetland Management Rules under Section 4. They could not dredge it, they could not build any jetties, they could not run any motorized boats. And as recently the army has started a water sports campaign in Deepor Bill by blocking the channels, by which the water level has come up during the winters. So what happens, the migratory birds come to Deepor Bill when the water level is low. But this time the water level was high. So there was less birds coming in. So that policy is also detrimental to the Deepor Beel's protection. The core area of the wildlife is wildlife sanctuary is 4.1 square kilometers, and the area outside that is maintained by the GMDA and Guwahati administration, which is 6.8 kilometer inclusive of this 4.1 square kilometers. And so these departments, they do not have any coordination among themselves. Some policies are started by one department. The forest department tries to protect it, but they are overruled. So there is, as Mr. Das has pointed out, there is no nodal agency to protect the Deepor Beel about the decisions taken, the policies taken in light of the central wetland management rules. So unless these management rules is adhered to in totality, there is no hope for Deepor Beel. It will shrink and shrink and shrink. 50 years later on, it might be reduced to a small pond, and thereafter, let's fill it up and come up with a shopping mall. That is how things go. And as regards litigations, there are a lot of litigations going on. There are orders also passed, but the implementation part is not happening at ground level. At every point, if we have to come before the court to implement government's own decisions taken as per policy, reiterated by the judicial pronouncements, that itself is a big losing scenario for Deepor Beel. So that zeal and that spirit must be there to protect it. So I think there are a lot of vested interests involved in this, because policies are just shown that we have taken this and that, and ultimately those vested interest purpose are served. Even now the GMDA, they come up with eco-friendly zones, green belt zones. So whenever they come with a green belt zone, there's a building regulations. You cannot construct for more than 4 floors or 5 floors. So once green belt is declared, the value of the land goes down. The people start selling their land. After they sell the land, after a period of time, say after a decade or so, that green belt is altered and commercial structures comes up. These are the policies that where we have to interfere and force the government to come to a definite conclusion, which is not happening. In other words, we can say we are being hoodwinked in name of these policies. Thank you so much.
So I'm extremely grateful to all my friends who made this an informative session. I extend my gratitude to Dr. B.C. Barua for inviting all of us, and to Dr. Pranita Chaudhary and Hia for giving us all the invites. Thank you very much. I don't want to keep it open for questions. If you have any questions, you can come and ask us one-on-one, because I'm sure all of you want to run back home, right? So thank you very much. I am really grateful to all my friends for having, and to all of you, those who have patiently sat and listened to us, thank you as well. Thank you as well.
And Pramod ji has encouraged me to speak many things in Assamese. I am very much encouraged. And it is just like a realization for me. I used to remember many things about Deepor Beel. Right? When I was the primary school, there was also certain books, textbooks we read about different wetlands. আমি এইবিলাক বিল বুলিয়ে কৈছিলোঁ। বিল বুলি কওঁতে আমাৰ কিছুমান বিলৰ নাম লিখিবলৈ দিছিলে, যে চান্দুবি ইজ অলছো এ বিল, বগী বিল, then Deepor Beel. So many wetlands came to our mind. Time hai. But Deepor Beel seems to me, when I was passing through nearby the Deepor Beel, it was like a small sea with vast water body. More এতিয়াও মনত আছে, দেখিলে আমি সেইফালৰ পৰা অহা যোৱা কৰিছিলোঁ, প্ৰায় বহুত পানী, মানে দেখিলে এটা সাগৰ যেন পোৱা যায়। আৰু আমাৰ কিছুমান কথাও আছিলে, মানুহে কৈছিলে যে দীপৰ বিল ইমান দ আছিলে যে তাত ওখ বাঁহ এডাল দিলেও তাত মানে ডুব গৈছিলে, এনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ কথা আছিলে। তাৰোপৰি আৰু এটা কথা এটা আছিলেগৈ, মই নিজেই দেখিছিলোঁ দীপৰ বিলৰ চাৰিওফালে মাছ, ধুনীয়া ধুনীয়া মাছ মাৰে, সেইখিনি ঠাইত বৰ ধুনীয়া ভাঙন মাছ বা এনেকুৱা। আজিকালি সেইটো নাই, এইফালেদি গ'লে এই যিটো ৰাস্তাৰ কথা ক'লে সৰু সৰু মাছ কিছুমান, আৰু খৰালি কালত অলমষ্ট ড্ৰাইং আপ, পানীয়ে নাথাকে, মেটেও নাথাকে, মানে মাটি ফাট মেলি যায়। So whatever it may be, so after all the session is very encouraging. আৰু এটা কথা এটা আছিলে, আগতে আমি সেইফালেদি আহোঁতে দেখিছিলোঁ শগুন, ভালচাৰ, so many in crowd. আৰু এইটো ভালচাৰ বুলি ক'লে এতিয়া কেতিয়াবা ষ্টুডেণ্ট যেতিয়া সোধে, কেতিয়াবা ঘৰত লাগে কি ছাৰ ভালচাৰ, then we remember that. So many things are there. So after all the session is very encouraging, and Deepor Bill deserves protection and reservation also. So many important things were coming out of this panel discussion. So I offer vote of thanks to all of our panelists, Devajit Das, then Minmay Khataniar, Rakhi Chaudhary, and Pramod Kulita, all of you. And if I forget to offer my vote of thanks to all of my colleagues, it will be right. I would remain ungrateful. I don't want to be lied at. So I offer vote of thanks to all of my colleagues, including Dean and including our students, those who are invited from other departments participating in this year, including research scholars. So thank you all. Thank you.